Okay, here we are back with the full 3D character construction and design construction process. So we're looking at the monster sculpt of Mush, the little mushroom Myconid character that we're using as a template here. And what we started to study here was, which is really much easier to do with clay, is held items, garments, costume effects, possible things to do for the feet. This character is going to be kind of a barefoot explorer. And then working out some of the parts that maybe you got to figure out as you build. So one of the things I discovered was that the cap of his helmet or his head was so big in the original design that it was really cumbersome to work with. And I found when I rigged and animated this character in Mixamo that if you move his head even the slightest bit, it would really throw everything off. So what I have here is the original size that I had the character at. There we go. Oops, lost his eyeballs. And now I'm in Maya. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to you get an idea for just how wide that the head was originally. And maybe we shrink it down even more. This was kind of more or less a speed sculpt I had done in ZBrush. And working out those things, another thing I discovered was, man, it was way easier to work with this thing with that cap out of the way. Like to get in here and sculpt, under the jawline and the eyes and whatnot if I had this cap in the way every time I'd move. So garments and clothing are kind of like that. You discover as you go. He's going to have a handheld item. He's going to have a staff. So if you want to do objects like that, the easiest way to do that, in my opinion, definitely is to start off with just really simple shapes. So for this one, I'll do divisible by 2 typically, and for this one we could do a cylinder, just a standard cylinder, and see it's all defaulted already to 20 sides. Let's go ahead and drop that down to say 12 sides. So you can always subdivide, but it's hard to go backwards and clean some up and reduce and delete row by row. So you'll see this character here, 8-sided on the arms, 8 sides on the legs, 8 sides on the fingers and the thumb. And you see the edge loop flow is really clean. When you go from the higher density, more edge loops to less, you do this N-gon poly split right here. So I'll show you how to do that as well. So that if you can figure out how to do the N-gon poly split where you have a 5-star and 3-star transition to curve around, you'll usually do it at the toes. You'll usually do that at the knuckle. Usually do it at the crotch, the armpit, right here at the shoulder, at the deltoid region. And then as you go up into the face, you want to do another one to add more geometry, to give it enough geometry to hold the detail and to subdivide. Another good rule of thumb when you're doing a simple low poly cage is to try and keep most of the faces roughly within a 1:2 ratio, so as close to square as possible. If they start getting really wide and elongated, that might be the point where you slide the edge loops around and move them. So if you've already UV mapped your object, so this guy right here, you see I've already UV mapped everything and I packed it into one space. So if I wanted to move an edge loop around, there's a couple tools that if I want to like subdivide, so if I hit 3 on this keyboard and I smooth this character, right, you see it's holding up really well. Then I've used 2 main tools in order to fine tune this core mesh. Now I'm going to bring this core mesh in and I'm going to sculpt the detail to give it more of this natural organic look. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to add like this little kilt and kind of mushroom fabric-y thing, the feet, some little clasp along the neck with some sort of maybe coach's type cloak. You see the fingers I took off there, so you're going to have him holding a staff. Roughly, I had a chopstick in there to have him holding. And then he has a little sack that he carries, his little magical satchel of spores that he goes and spreads around. And then I did a little base form with some stone and some different organic structure. So part of this was giving him an environment to work in, making a modular kit, and also building that out. So just keep that in mind as we do this. We are going to do the complete world building here, just in the and you'll find that doing a character well, designing it, building it, UV mapping it, texture mapping it, coloring is just as much work sometimes as building like a whole level. So if we're gonna do some modular level design here, you see I have like a little mushroom environment, and that stuff's kind of dogpiled on top of itself. See, this is 3D Studio Max. I built this a long time ago. But you can see here that, you know, again, 8-sided, you know, these probably, this is old, probably would have subdivided in the middle here at the cap a little bit more, so keep these long sliver quads in there. But I just did a couple, and then I did one, and then I bent it in a couple different directions, and that way you get some variety. And then, you know, just rotating and scaling and smushing around, you can take just a few of these models and really make a pretty detailed environment. And these are meant to be jumped on, bounced on, like as bridges, like to walk across. So you can envision these being really huge. And if you can do a really large object for your environment, and you're going to be able to walk on it and interact with it, you want to keep that in mind where the pathing on these objects is going to be. So these are kind of dogpile. There's my little human reference cube that we always put in the environment. So I'll go through this modular kit as well, but let me not sidetrack myself here. And let's get a couple items for this guy to hold onto. And so the staff would be the first thing, is little hiking kind of traveler magic fungus mushrooms staff. So for this one, I want to make sure that I can subdivide it and sculpt on it. So we can't have these long slivers on here, and we can't have pie triangles on there either. So what you do for this is we go into the poly, we give it one division on the cap, like that. Oops, try that again. There we go. So that gives us a little ring across the top here. We then go to the height subdivision. So for this one, let's get to make it at least a close approximate width that I'd put, like I held the chopstick up to the character's hand. So I'll go down here to the radius, and we'll get this a lot thinner. Right about there. Maybe a tiny bit bigger. So just getting close. There we go. And then on the subdivision, so I want to get it enough subdivisions so that it's not a bunch of long rectangles. So this one's quite a bit. There we go. Now I could do less on there, but this is such a let's go see what that is. Yeah, there we go. So they're pretty close to square. They don't have to be perfect. But this is going to subdivide really nice. And if I go in here and make sure I name stuff as I go, so we'll do staff. And so you can, you know, make things, you can isolate objects with the isolate button. Whatever 3D package you're working in, I recommend you figure out what your isolate button is, so that way you can quickly, if you have a whole bunch of stuff in your scene like I do. So here's the different versions of mesh that I was conceptualizing here. You want to be able to very quickly go in there and hide it and just work on that one thing. So the getting rid of the triangles, if they're divisible by 2, usually this trick works like a charm. So what I do is I go into the edges, and if I go every other edge, I can delete these diagonal edges in here and make it all quads, right? So I'm just going to go in here and control backspace, and there you go. So now I have this 12-sided object that has all quads. If I subdivide it, you see it's going to give me a weird subdivision if this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides, right? So whenever you have a 5-sided object that's symmetrical like this, you should be able to go into your modeling program, and I'll just use the multi-cut here, and you should be able to connect across plane like this, and now it's all quad. So now if I subdivide it, you see it's going to get a nice subdivision. And then I would do the same thing down here at the bottom. You don't have to do this. I'm just showing you some kind of tricks of the trade modeling techniques. There's not a lot of absolutes in terms of just have good edge loop flow. and try and keep it all quads if you're going to subdivide it and use it as a subdivision surface for through digital sculpture. So yeah, there we go. That should work pretty well. So if I smooth this, it's going to hold its shape pretty well. Now, the other thing you want to do is you want to UV map this. So let me show you my quick and dirty UV mapping trick in Maya. Right, so it does come with a default subdivision. Great. This actually does kind of work with the cylinder. It'll give you two lids, the top and the bottom, and then it'll also give you one seam down the edge, so you can see where the seam is on here. See if I go to edge here and grab that edge and go in center up there. It should. There it is. There's my seam. So what I could do is there's just 3 keys really I use in here, and that's it. And I make UV mapping just like no brainer fast if I can. So go to faces, grab all the faces, and Control U, which is your modify unfold tool. So that Control U will automatically unwrap everything. They're not in proportion in terms of size to each other, however, and you do want to turn on the automatic UV checkerboard to show that on screen to make sure that it is indeed, there's nothing flipped backwards. I usually just kind of blow things up and make sure all the writing is going the right direction. There's nothing flipped backwards. I check the top. That looks good. And I check the bottom. That looks good as well. And then what I can do is I can go to these 2 edges here. And I know there's tools in here to scale these in proportion to each other, probably faster than what I'm doing. So it's the unfold, the align and snap, the arrange and layout. There's all these buttons in here. And you know what? I'm just going to skip all this garbage for you guys. And I'm just going to grab the 2 caps on here. Let me turn this off in the UV editor so you guys can see a little bit. And I'm going to scale these down until the checkers are the same exact size as the body of the cylinder. So I just scale down. I'm just using the QWERTY keys, right? Q, W, E, R, select, move, rotate, scale. So I'm just using the scale tool here. Get them down pretty close. There we go. And then if you really need to, I can go to the move tool and I can come up here and I can just compare an edge here and make sure that one edge width here is the same as one edge of that one. So I'm just eyeballing it and close enough and I'll be good to go. There we go. So almost got it. And that's just about it. Like this, you know, would be mostly done. So what I can do now is I can grab this whole thing and scale the whole thing down into the 1-to-1 sector here. Bring it over. And what I'd probably do is I would do a whole layout that's masked off with channels for equipables, for held items, pickup items, things like that. So I'd maybe sector off a UV coordinate system that could contain different pickup items. So maybe he'd have like a face mask, a respirator over here. Maybe it has some of his shoes down here. So you can block those off into areas. And but again, I'm not going to turn this into a giant UV mapping demo because there's a lot to it. But that is it. That guy's done. Right now, if I needed to do this from scratch, what I would do is I would take the staff, take the cylinder. I'm just going to duplicate this over for a second. So if this were something that didn't have UVs, or they were all like scrambled eggs, like let's just do the auto unwrap one like this one. Okay. Go ahead, enter, and then look at that, and you see, oops, what did I just do? Yeah. And you see now it's a pretty big mess, right? Well, not too bad, but it's giving me 4 different cuts. I'm gonna have stitches and seams all over the place. So what I usually do is I just grab the whole thing, just give it a flat plane, that's it. Don't even worry about it, okay? I pick my edges and do 2 tools. That's under the cut cell. Shift X, Shift S, right, to cut edges and then to sew edges back up. So I want the caps separated. So what I would do is go up here to edge, double click, it goes all the way around, go back in the viewport, hit Shift S, cut, go down to the bottom, double click that edge. That should give me an edge loop all the way around the bottom of the model. You can see if I go to X-ray mode. Oops, let's see if I can X-ray or not. X-ray component and oh, we have a different X-ray mode now. Interesting. So that should now, if I have that edge double clicked, and it's an edge loop, which is a contiguous edge that goes loops around an object. I can go back in here again and Shift S or Shift X, which is cut. Okay, now I can go to the face here and double click on the face, which should go to the shell, which is all the faces connected to it. Move it out of the way, and you'll see I have the bottom right there. And where's our top? And the top's in there. Maybe I didn't cut the edges on the top yet, huh? Must have undid it on accident. So just double click, go back to the viewport, Shift X, go back to face mode, and move them out of the way. There we go. So now the top and the bottom are detached from the cut. And then if this faces go all the way around, right? The edge ring all the way around the object like that. Let me turn this off for a second. Okay, so just pick one edge to be the seam. So I'm just going to pick this edge right here. So double click and then let go. Control drag to take away the backside. Just get here a nice little easy to grab viewport mode. There we go, like that. And just make sure that indeed the seam just goes down the one side of the cylinder. Okay, go back into here, Shift X. So I'm basically just giving a flat mapping to everything. It's just a mess. I then go to edge mode and cut where I want my seams to be. It's like pattern making, like unfolding a cardboard box, right? I then go to face mode, double click. It should go to shell, where I can grab all these faces and just hit Control U, and boom. That should be done. Let's see, where are the faces for this guy? That should be, there we go. I'm not sure what happened to that one. Where's the other faces up here? Like they disappeared on me. Huh, that's really odd. All right, so whatever, I'll just give it a flat mapping, or this one here. There we go. Go to W to move, and then same thing. I would just take all these and just do what I did with the other one, scale them in relation to each other. Gather and stack, orient, randomize, layout, distributes, UV sets. You can copy and paste and make new UV sets. I'll get into that as well. Here's the create automatic cylinders, the one I was just clicking on. Here's the transforms, pinning, select by type. Here's the unfold. You can optimize the unfold, right? You can, there's the aligns and snaps. And I was looking for the scale and to gather shells. There we go. You can stack similar shells, which stacks over the top of each other. Two things that are similar. But yeah, there's a bunch of tools to use in there. So we're not going to get any deeper than that. That's just put a flat planar map on your object, right? And then just pick where you want your edges to go. Just pick the edge and run the edges along. I often find it faster to just double click an edge, get all the edge loops, and then hold down Control and D and take away. What I don't want is faster than going in here and going one edge at a time. That is going to click out your arm for sure. It's not healthy. So yeah, so this guy here is just a really simple cage, right? There's no sculptural detail. This is like the simplest one that I had on there. And that's really helps you because you can do a lot of your sculpting organically. So take the staff here, go to move. I'm going to put the pivot down here at the bottom. No, I'll just put it in the center. So just hold down X. That's going to grid snap it to the center of the world. Freeze and delete history. And so now I can go in here and go ahead and save the scene. And do File and Export Selection. And I'll usually take the name straight out of the outliner here. So we'll call this one Staff _ 01. And this is going to the mush scenes. Let's see. Construction. Okay, so there's staff, export the staff, and then I'll grab the rest of mush here And looks like there's the cap, there's the body, there's the eyeballs. There's it's clicking over here. Oh, actually, I got this guy is over here on the side. There we go. So eyeballs, mush low poly body, and mush cap. Yeah. So I'll take those guys and export those. I'll try this one as a Fbx. So we'll go mush 2022, and we'll try Fbx Export, which is the Autodesk, what do you call it? Proprietary file format interchange. Gives you a little bit more information. You usually want we're just doing sculpting and modeling and texturing right now, so you want the geometry. It should be on default, smoothing groups, smooth mesh, reference assets. But I turn off animation, I turn off, we don't want any new cameras, we don't want any lights coming over, we don't want any audio. Embed media, we do want, what that'll do is that'll create a texture map. If I have a texture map for each of these objects, it'll create a separate texture map with a name for like the cap, the eyes, and the body, even though they share the same sheet, the same texture map. They're going to have different materials, IDs, signs. So like the eyes are going to have a different material from the body, from the head. And then same thing, the staff, of course. So let's try that out. So I'm going to export that. And then we're going to hop over to ZBrush. And ZBrush has a plugin for Fbx. So, you know what? Before I do that, though, let's go back over here. Let me take the body here, and let's also export that as export selection as an OBJ. So we'll go mush 2022, but instead of as Fbx, I'm just going to do the basic OBJ, right? That's the notepad, least information, simplest, has a RGB, or excuse me, has a XYZ coordinate for each vertex points as well as a UV map coordinate on there. So let's do that one as well. So we'll do mush 2022. Not the best naming conventions for sure. And then the staff, I did the OBJ, I think. Let's see if I did the Fbx for the staff. Yeah, I did the F. So we'll go staff 01. So I want an OBJ and an Fbx of each one. Now, depending on which apps you're using in your pipeline, this could change, but OBJ, Fbx, pretty rock solid at this point. Don't have much in terms of problems. The Fbx import, so if I go to import this, let's see, is it Fbx 2020? Yeah, this might not work because of the, oh boy, because of the Fbx version. So just so you know, that is the one of the main pitfalls to be aware of what your Fbx plugin exporter is set to. So if you're a little behind the times, so this is set to 2020, I don't even know if they have a newer one yet that's better. It's been a little bit since I was trying to bring it, but I usually stay a version or two behind on Fbx because there has been trouble in the past. I don't know if there's much trouble anymore, but it looks like that should work. So I just got to make sure I know where my path is for this thing. So let me go in here and grab that path, and then go back over to ZBrush, and we'll go select file, paste in that path. So there it is. So there's the Maquette Mush 2022 Fbx open, and there he is. Now that was really strange. There you go. Okay, so yeah, it did come over. So it brought the eyeballs separate. It brought the body. It brought the cap, and I think that's pretty much it. So if we draw that out, just control drag, and as soon as I let go, I hit T on the keyboard, and I use P for perspective when I'm sculpting. I now have this character that's pretty much ready to rock and roll, and I can go in here, and I usually will pick a material that works with the lighting. Something that's going to show up well. It's going to give me an outline. Now, because of his cap, like I say, it really gets in the way. It blocks a lot of stuff, lighting and things like that. So what you can do is go in here to lighting, and I usually set up a builder light just like I would in my studio. You want to have some good bounce lighting around. Let's see if I can get metallic. There we go. And try and get like a 3-point lighting setup that's going to actually show the silhouette and the edges of this character. So that's a little bit, let's go basic material. light. Let's see if that's showing. Just barely. And that one's got intensity 0.85. That one's 0.18. Crank it up a little bit, and then we could even do a third 3-point lighting setup. I have turned it. There we go. And let's do one maybe from the another one up here, and this one will put light coming from the front or whatever, and just play. That one's from above in the front. That one's from behind in the back. It's a poorly built interface for the lighting, honestly, but yeah, ZBrush, what do you expect, right? Cool. So that's the basic material. You could pop through these and see what works best for you. The sketch lets you see the polygons while you're working. But yeah, so I want to get from, that, I want to get, all the detail I had in the sculpture here. So I did bulk them up. I definitely bulked up his legs. Graphically, the little skinny, spindly arms and legs, it was like from a 2D side scroller design originally when I first did this demo. And so he's changed now into more of a 3D platform. So I had to like strengthen up like his neck in order to support this great big cap, and I had to strengthen up his legs. So we're going to look at that while we're sculpting. So what I could do is I could take this image here and I could bring it up out of the way. Let's see if that works. There we go. And there's another function too. If you wanted to, inside of ZBrush, you can set this up behind the window, and there's a transparency, a see-through behind it, so you can actually set up your reference on your sheet just on an app, separate app behind it, and you can just turn the see-through up and down, which is pretty freaking awesome. So I love this little silhouette tool. So at this point, always make sure you have symmetry turned on. Turn on the floor, make sure he's right side up, go to the body here, and I can see that if I hit an X on the keyboard, it usually does the X symmetry. There's a whole mess of stuff to do here in the interface for ZBrush. The other thing I wanted to be sure and show you guys was the SculptGL and Sculptris, the free applications that are pretty amazing. So let's go to Sculptris, and Sculptris, there is a Sculptris mode inside ZBrush, so they bought Sculptris a while back, unfortunately, and they really practically squashed it. They gutted the functionality, but they did make it where it moves like ZBrush. So if you learn Sculptris, it's still available, and it's still awesome because it automatically adds, see the triangles in here? It automatically adds triangles and subdivisions to your model as you sculpt. So it's really, really freaking awesome, especially if you're grabbing and moving stuff around, like on a 3D. See, it's just adding polygons and adding triangles as I go. I mean, that is so awesome, right? And you can always, you go ahead and inflate this back up a little bit as you go. Try not to let the geometry fold in on itself too much. Shift to smooth. So if it's like already crisscrossed the side of itself. Now, all these newer apps, the VR ones that I'm showing you guys, as well as Nomad Sculpt and 3D Blanket, there's so many cool apps out there now. So let's see, let's go ahead and do a import. So I'm going to go to the Mush 2022 base, and then new scene. You don't want to add the objects. We're just going to lose that one. Okay, no problem. And it's not letting me more than 4 corners. I was pretty sure I cleaned that model up. That's funny. Maybe the eyeballs could have messed up. So let's just grab the body. So I'm just going to grab this model here, file, and going to export the selection, go mush, oops, paste that in there, mush body. Go back over to Sculptris, and we'll go to import the OBJ, and we'll go, I hope it's there. There's the style. selection to the mesh staff should be, oh, Fbx, shoot, that's what I did wrong. All right, so let's importing OBJ, right? So, yeah. Okay, go back over here again. There it is. Open and new scene and more than 4 corners. What? All right, so mesh cleanup. Let's try that. Oh, I had it all subdivided. Crap. So that might not have liked that. So, so I'm gonna just grab all these guys and freeze their position so they're at the XYZ 0, feet on the ground. And then I'm going to delete their history so there isn't anything trying to come along for the ride. And then I'll grab these guys once more and do File, Export Selection. And we'll go Mush 2022 Demo. Man, my naming conventions really are horrible anymore. It's like too many things that we'll just make more of a mess of it. What the heck? So go ahead and import, go back over and grab the low poly body demo. Facing the camera, new scene. What the fuck? It's still giving me the error. Why? Let's take a look. So let's isolate this guy. And it looks like it's definitely all quads to me. If I round it off, it rounds really nicely. Not sure. Oh. And all right, so if we go to mesh and we go to let me make sure this is not smooth. Mesh, and there are different ways to select. So if I go to cleanup, there are options, and if there's any matching polygons like overlapping each other, if there's fixed by tessellation, faces with more than 4 sides, faces with holes, non-polar faces, lambda, showing edges. Those are edges that are stacked inside of each other, non-manifold geometry. Let's try this and see if it does anything. That looks like an absolute nightmare. What just happened? And I undo that. I did. I didn't think the tessellation was on there. Man, I didn't mean to get into this. Oh, fixed by tessellation. No, we don't want to tessellate anything. We just want to clean up. Select matching pod, clean up matching pod, apply to selected objects. 0 length, yes, normal. Okay, try that again. And then there's a select by function. You can select by different components, and if there was errors in the faces, there's a way to show that as well. It's just been a little bit since I tried that. So let's try this again. So exports. Oops, let me, so inside the inputs in the attribute editor, you can see input. If you did any changes in there, you sometimes might have to go and clean it up again, but I'm going to give this a shot. So take that one, file, and export selection as an OBJ body, and replace it. Yes, go back over to Sculptris and import the body. 10, yep. You've seen. Still tell me there's more than 4 corners. 4 corners. What the hell? All right, so let's go to SculptGL because it actually is a better program. It just doesn't do the instant subdivision that Sculptris does. Is the only, and SculptGL doesn't have an exact matchup to ZBrush's interface as well, but that's okay. So we'll go add object, and I'll go in here and quick access. Low poly body. Yeah, there it is. Awesome. So that worked. Like I said, it's better application. So it is floating up on there, which was kind of odd. W and then E is your move transform. So now I have this character in my sculpting app. Now I can get in here and it just has really simple sculpting tools, right? So if I go to just a regular brush tool, symmetry's turned on automatically. Here's contiguous. Here is the topology to subdivide, reverse, resolution. If I subdivide one, let's see, maybe it's at the top of the head is where it's giving me trouble. Yeah, okay, so I missed something up here. At the top of the head. Where it's at? Guess so. I guess I messed up on the quads up here on the head. Otherwise, that would not be there. That would not be there. So there's two errors on there that I did not see. Oh, yep. Five-sided shape right there. Bam, 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 bam. Rookie maneuver. All right. It's peasy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fix this real quick. So I'm gonna go into so you can see this is a five-sided. I was cutting the like I said, the higher amount of information to the lower amount. That's why all quads is important. You want to keep that cleanliness. So multi-cut. So come in here, cut one time, hold down Shift, go. Actually, yeah, Shift to go in the middle, and across. Enter, and then click here, one, Shift, middle, 1, 2, 3, and then finish it, enter. So here's the n-gon, which five-sided shape, triangle split. So what you do is five-sided, cut in half to the middle of the hypotenuse of a triangle makes 3 quads out of a triangle and an n-gon. So I just go here. At this point, hold down Shift to go dead center, enter, come back over here, Shift to the outside, hit enter, go to the top up here, Shift, outside, hit enter, Shift to the corner, enter, switch over to my scaling tool, go to vertex, grab the hypotenuse of 1, 2, 3, 4, and just slide them on out. There you go. So 1, 2, 3 quads. And now if I hit 3 and subdivide, it's fine. And I can't believe I missed that, but actually I can. It happens all the time. Okay, so now I can freeze that out. Okay, same thing. If I click on this, go to the attribute editor, you'll see now our channel, all the split, all that stuff I just did is now in the history, as well as possibly messing up the UVs on the top of the skull right here. You see those UVs are not the same. So if I double click that, hit Control U, it should unwrap it, and it didn't move the scale or nothing. So pretty cool if that works. The other thing, before I go too far on this, I could grab all of these objects that I packed together in the same UV space. That's 0 to 1, 0 to 1. I'm not using the UMG or the other space around, just in one single simple one to load into Mozilla. The Foxfire's spoke or hubs are also to keep it low poly simple for if I want to do this for mobile games or for the Quest or something like that. So I grab all of these faces here. I go to image and do a UV snapshot and make sure it's going to the right location on my path, and we'll call this Mush 2022 UVs, and then hit save, and then it's a JPEG at 2048. Should be okay. Apply and close. Awesome. Okay, now I'm wondering if I have any other errors in here. I guess we're going to find out. All right, so grab this guy again, file. We'll go ahead and actually do save the scene. And I do have auto saves turned on. Auto saves, Windows, general editors, and there should be files. There's the preferences in there. Settings, preferences, there you go. You go to preferences, and then want to go to files, projects, and turn on enabling autosave. I usually put it on for about every 20 minutes. 12 saves divided by 3 is about 4 hours worth of work. So I can lose 20 minutes of work in a bind, and I don't want the autosave thing coming up any more frequently. Now, that's just my preference. Okay, so this is ready to go now. So I'll go File, Fbx Export, Export Selection, and do the Fbx one more time. Go Mush, low, there we go. demo. All these defaults should be the same. They are. Get these on K, export selection, and then do the same thing. File, export selection, and do for the demo Fbx. We want to do that as an OBJ, which is right above Fbx. There it is. For selection. Okay, now this should hopefully work, since it was user error after all. 417, there we go. Grab this new scene, and OBJ has mapping data. Go to paint. No, we don't want to paint it. Just want to sculpt it. There we go. Ah. All right. So now I have this guy ready here, and you'll see there is a symmetry tool if you want to do symmetry. I'm going to be doing really conceptual sculpting. So I'm trying to get my digital version to have the same detail as my Maquette sculpt that I've been working on here for the traditional demo. I still have a lot to do on like the gills and the head and some other parts. So we could do that, and then I could also go over to SculptGL, and now I can get in here and we can just delete this whole. You go to E to select and then just hit delete. There we go. Go to File, Import, and add an OBJ file, and then we'll grab the demo, not the material file, just the OBJ file. There he is. And you see it does shift it up still. It's really annoying. I wish location and all that stuff was finally standardized across these apps. But yeah, he's ready to rock and roll. So yes, like I said, this sits in the way. Better to bring them in as separate objects. So I'll delete that. Go over here and we'll do the body one at a time. So we'll just grab the body, copy, file, export selection, export the body, OBJ, save. This time it should have those other parts removed. There's the cap, file, export selection. We'll go much cap. Selection, and then we'll do the eyeballs. I'm not going to do anything sculptural on the eyes just yet. So the eyes I'd bring in just so I could sculpt the eyelids around them. It's really makes life way easier to have a sphere in there, an eyeball to sculpt the eyelids. Makes it life much easier. So wait, did I just have the eye? Thought I did. Accident. There we go. File, export selection. Much eyeballs. OBJ. Cool. All right. So now I can go back into, say, SculptGL. A nice blank scene here. And we can go add OBJ. So we grab the body. And then we grab the import OBJ. Then we grab the eyeballs. And like I said, I don't know where they went. Brush inflate tool. Symmetry is turned on. The file, add OBJ. Oh, there's scale and center. Add OBJ. Oh, I got the material file. There we go. So you'll see, yeah, there it goes. So it moved them. Really annoying. They don't just have the same reference. Possibly if I had the scale and center turned on, maybe that'll fix it. So let me try that. So I'm going to delete these, and we'll have scale and center, and then try adding the OBJ file. So then I'm going to grab the body again. Okay, and it still shoved it down below the grid. And then add OBJ again, grab the eyeball OBJ file, and yeah, now it's like really just going like insane, totally dumb. Okay, so do it one more time. So add OBJ. At least I had the body the correct scale, I hope. Again, this is free software. I'm not complaining. You know, okay. Worked that time. Wow. I wonder what I did differently. Maybe I had the body selected and grab the cap. Yeah, okay. So maybe in relation to each other if I grab them. So it won't let me though. Let's see if it will let me. Okay, I can grab all of them. So I'm not going to worry too much about yeah, I'm not going to move stuff around too much on there, but now you get the idea. I can't accidentally sculpt on the eyeballs, which is nice. So what I can do now though is I can take this in here, I can subdivide it once and then twice, and then I think there is an isolation. Yeah, eye for isolate. Awesome. So let's just talk about that in Maya so you can isolate these guys. And so now what I could do is I can go in here and I can sculpt a quick mock-up or idea for this character based on what we have from the traditional sculpt, right? So let's try that out. And just to be sure to, let me go over here to this file and delete that. OBJ import. I'll grab the body. Scene. No, oh shit, no, I don't want to do that. I accidentally asked me if I want to go to paint. It gets you like clicking on accident sometimes. No, don't paint it yet. So once you switch to paint mode in Sculptris, you can't go back, which is like super dumb, moronic. Again, they just did that because they can. I'm just going to get rid of any asymmetrical details. Cancel. Let's see. So it should be a symmetrical object already. What this will do is this will get rid of the UVs and everything, which kind of stinks. But we're going to like project that down anyway. Let's try adding the eyeballs in the cap. So let's go to the eyeballs, and then that'll say add to the object. And then it does this really horrible placement algorithm. Yeah, I mean, that's just dumb. Right? And then, so yeah, free software. What the heck? So if I did go to ZBrush, right? And if I'm in here and now I can go in here and it should have all the UVs. The UVs are done. I think we still use UV master so you can see the unwrap. But if this guy's in here, if I go in here and I go Control D and subdivide, or let's see, where is that out of here? It's the rename, duplicate, split merge, subdivision tool. Yeah, oh, that's right. We have the visibility sets on there too now, which is pretty cool. So if we go in here to geometry and we divide, so there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that gives us a nice, it reduces detail, right? It gives you like our marshmallowy look. And here's the solo button again, like just like the isolation button in the other one. But now what I can do though, if I hit Shift F for polyframes, is I can go Shift D, go back to the lowest poly cage, and use something really standard like the move topological brush. I can get in here with symmetry on, and I can use the bracket keys, and I can make big changes to this guy. And then if I go and look at the higher subdivision, it will keep the detail, and vice versa. So if I go in here and just do a standard clay build-up brush on there, right? And just, whoa, that's crazy. I need to get my Wacom tablet hooked up with this. You do want to use pressure sensitivity. So if I go in here and start, you know, sculpting in all this detail, and shift to smooth it out, which will go pretty fast since I have my maquette right here next to me, right? So if I go back down the subdivision, Shift D down low, you see it's still there. And then if I go to the UV master and look at the unwrap, that's going to be there as well. So for this guy here, I'm going to go File, and save as. They finally fixed like the project, Z project and all that stuff. They finally fixed it to where it saves the subtools within the project. Like the longest time saving tools separately and not having a project or file interface in ZBrush. I'm hoping Maxon fixes all the horrible interface problems because it really is my favorite program. It's also like the worst interface of all of my digital art tools. Like you'll hear almost every artist that's still new, that's done of the 3D, like Maya, ZBrush, or 3D Studio Max, Unreal, Unity. They mostly will all agree ZBrush has the worst interface and the hardest to learn and the hardest to remember of anything. So a couple of the regular brushes you want to use. So between these three apps, they're pretty much standard. So let me get the whole demo back in here again. You've seen, no problem. No, do not paint it. Make it symmetrical. Yes. I have a symmetry line in there. Cool. But there's just a couple brushes really. It's just the crease brush. There's a standard brush, which is draw in here. Over here, if you go to the brush pull down, it's just called brush. So think of that as the standard brush. You should have symmetry on here. So if I do here, you know, go in, there's push pull. Alt is always the opposite, and then shift is the smooth. So right here, you see the negative is checked on. So if I just do a regular brush stroke on there, you see it's going to pull, puff out. If I do alt, the opposite, you'll see the check turn on, and then it'll push down. And then if I hit shift, shift should automatically switch over to smoothing. So that works in all of these applications, which is pretty awesome, right? So there we go. So if you want to add a little bit of detail in here, we go and do the clay option and put the strength up a tiny bit. As I sculpt here, it's going to add detail to the model. There we go. I mean, it's such a light and small interface. You can watch a couple tutorials and just start flying on this and learn digital sculpture without having to go deal with this beast, which is the, you know, like I said, worst interface, bloat, menu bloat to the level of Maya, which is funny because it doesn't really have visual effects, animation, lighting, rendering tools that are industry standard. It's really a sculpting package, but they've chosen to keep it experimental and have all these really cool things you can do with it rather than a simple interface that does what it is best at. So that's my little gripe about this stuff. But so general draw brush, general brush tool, same thing. Clay buildup, usually you'll have a clay, which kind of does clay layers. So which is directly relates to the way we kind of built up layers in with the monster clay, which is pretty slick. And so the other ones are going to be a crease tool. So here's crease. So crease is going to let you get in here and kind of create little rivulets of detail. Let me subdivide this one more time. There we go. So when you get in here and start doing, you know, eyelids and eye sockets, I'm doing this with my mouse, so I'll do a better job of this when I have my Wacom. If I hold down the Alt key, so it's going to bring up the crease. So usually you want to bring up an edge, and then right next to it you want to push back against it, and that gives you a really nice transition of between planes. And then shift to smooth. Shift usually you want to tone down, otherwise it'll just wipe out all your detail, which is usually not what you want to do. This stuff. So there we go. So I'm just kind of see, I accidentally copy eyeballs on there, so you got to be careful. I think there might be a way to freeze it. I'm not sure. And then over in Sculptris, same thing. So because the eyeballs are not separate objects, though, there's a way to mask, like select mask these guys. Here's the mask brush tool. I think, yeah, it's not working right now. But I would just almost bring in the eyeball. There's a way to mask individual pieces that are not connected to each other in inside Sculptris, but I don't know, people are using it less and less. So, and then the other one is the flattened surface. So when we're doing this with the monster clay, it's going to be the flatten brush here. So flatten is going to give you a nice kind of polished edge. So you want one polished surface edge to run up against another polished surface edge right here, and then shift to smooth those out. And that's going to give you nice surface change and kind of define some angles. Ooh. And yeah, it's pretty strong with a mouse. But at this point, I really need so again, that's I go through the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Drag is the move. I want to do like big movements here. That. Okay, 9. Paint, and then 10 is the actual move where you're going to move the whole. That's a little bit different algorithm, but E is going to be your gizmo. That's where you actually move stuff up and down, rotate. I'm sorry, scaling to have the dial, the circle as a rotate, which is really funny. It should be the squares. Yeah, and then that's the rotates. That's E, and then you go back to W is the wireframe, and then back to 1, the draw brush. Inflate, which you also have over here. So there's the inflate brush. C, so these are ERT, DFG, and CVB brushes, right? So there's your smooth. So if I have the crease brush here, I can go in here and crease, hold down Alt to bring up as opposed to pushing back. See, it's doing the eyeball really badly on there. And then that's pushing down the crease, pull down Alt, and that will pick back up and pull forward. It's a great way to do the lips here. The detail here, Q, if you crank it up, that's going to add more subdivisions as you detail, so just be aware. I kind of will do the detail in the face at the very end because we tend to get lost in the face. So that's the crease brush, and then here's the flattened one I just mentioned. So if you want to chisel those edges like underneath. Oops. You can pull those. Here's the move brush or grab, which is also the drag. Grab, if you hit it a second time, there's global, which moves the whole thing, right? So G moves the whole thing, and then non-global is going to let us grab and move just a portion of the character. And then as I pull, if it needs to, there you go, it'll add subdivision geometry based on how high up you have the details on there, right? So that's pretty creepy. So yeah, I love this subdivision here. It's just, man, they gutted it so bad. They're really trying to force, you know, as most of these monopolies do. They buy it up and then now there's a sculptors mode. Yay, activated inside ZBrush, but then you have to spend 400 bucks, I think, something crazy like as a student version for ZBrush. Yeah. So that is where now I can go in here now and I can look at this and say, all right, I want to give them some muscles, anatomy, bigger, bulk up the feet and the legs, down in here in the foot. You can see the difference in there between the two, and take it from there. So that'll be the next video.